Hey everyone, Margarita here. I'm going to film this episode today where I left off in one of the last few episodes that I released, which was pertaining to how my life speaks for itself. Now, I was talking about how it's just really absurd that all of these individuals who know nothing about me personally got their information from my deranged mother or another family member or a friend of a family, another third party who knows nothing about me directly, everybody just passing the false narrative amongst themselves and passing it around as if that's all real, and everyone just riding on it like that's true without ever verifying anything about me. Because this has been going on for decades at this point. It's been going on well over 2 decades, actually well over 3 decades, because it began around the time I was age 3, 4, or 5 years old. So I'm going to pick up from there, because literally my life really does speak for itself. And you can tell none of these idiots riding on these decades of delusions have ever actually looked into me for real. Because if they did, they would know that everything they've been told is an extreme delusion, is an extreme opposite statement from who I truly am as a person, or what I have going on in my life, or what's ever been going on in my life. So there's a lot of people who, just because they were told a half-truth and then they see whatever's going on that day or in that moment, or they don't understand the bigger picture, they continue to believe whatever false narrative they were told, whether it be a small amount of information or a larger amount of information, doesn't matter. Everyone's still riding on it. So if you look at my life overall, from what I've been through and where I am today, yeah, I'm 100% self-made, self-built, independently owned and operated, built everything by myself, for myself, from nothing. Not only from nothing, but I started over 3 solid times from nothing from the time I was 18, due to my deranged mother causing all these catastrophic life events and all of these wipeouts along the way, where I was forced to start my life all over again from nothing. So that's happened 3 solid times, and if you count the Chapter 13 bankruptcy, that would be a 4th time. But I get to keep all of my assets and rebuild from there, so it's not a complete wipeout, and in the end it'll balance out. But I've then had to pay tens of thousands of dollars in attorney fees and interest in the end of all that. Because I became that high up on the chain between the 3rd wipeout and the 4th attempted wipeout. So if you look at from the very beginning, at me starting my first business at age 11, me starting working in restaurants at age 14, and then continuing on from there, growing everything from there. I believe I said in another video, I had always had at least 2 streams of income or more. And at age 16, I began doing that. I would get 2 work permits and work double the time, because the only way I ever had any peace was by being at work and away from my mother, because I wasn't allowed to go anywhere or do anything or have any friends. So I already had a driver's license right when I turned 16. I already had the car bought when I was 15, because I'd been working since I was 14. So I immediately went and got 2 work permits and stayed gone, because I had already known I needed to leave right at 18. So if you look at everything I've been doing all along the way, and then purchasing my first home at 18, owning the home for 6 years, purchasing my second at 23, and then owning that one for a couple of years, the problem there was that the market had crashed. But then I had enough money to buy a whole other home with cash. About 2 years into me eventually walking away from the home after the mortgage company refused to work with me on the interest rate and reduce it to a reasonable rate. So if you look at the overall picture of everything I've been through, with all of these wipeouts, mind you, I always had 2 children. From the time I was 18, I had my first one. When I was 21, I had my second one. I went through all of this with 2 young children as a single mother. I am independently owned, operated, and self-made, self-built without a partner the entire time I've been doing this. So all of these delusions about my mother having custody of and raising my kids, those are all delusions. Those are not facts. That's never been real. All of these people, family members, friends, large agencies, police departments, they've all been operating as if that is real information, and it's never been real information. Those kids have always been with me. I always drove them to school, picked them up. That remained the case all the way until I had my first brain injury giving birth with my last child in 2016. By then, those kids were one was a teenager, one was almost a teenager, and that's when they started taking the bus. But their entire lives, I had driven them to school and picked them up. If not, my dad would pick them up on his way home, or I had a couple of sets of backup support systems, so they were not always with my parents when I was at work. I know that's another delusion going on. That is not how I ran things at all, and a lot of the times I was working, my kids were sleeping. So there's many delusions here that I'm going to be clearing up overall. All of these videos tied to each other. They're all tied together as a whole. It all fits one giant picture. But if you look at everything I've been through, everything I've been building, the numerous streams of income along the way, always owning real estate, becoming self-employed in 2007 and 100% self-employed in 2012, and always having numerous streams of income along the way, my life literally speaks for itself. Now, the home I'm in currently, I've owned for the past 8 years. Yes, I was forced away for about 1.5 years. However, about 1 year of that, I was still up in the Michigan area taking care of my dad during his injury, even though I'm injured myself. So I strategically managed to squeeze that in. I just couldn't always go home to my house in Ohio while I was gone. The problem was my home here in Flat Rock was on the main blast zone of the 2021 Ford gas bill, and the particle level was so high, and the EPA skews the results to such an extreme degree that we were living with our brains bleeding. We had to leave, and I could not travel up and down I-75 for about 2 years from the time it happened. So the problem was I-75 and directly where my house sat, and a couple miles out from there in every which direction. So where my dad was once his injury occurred in Michigan, even though it's really only 15-20 minutes from here, it was in a different direction than where the gas particles were floating at the time that all occurred. So I did still make it to him all during that time. And here I was driving long distances. I'm injured myself. I'd barely kept my son and I alive up until that point. And then still continued to take care of my dad all the way until my mother created a whole other escapade, went on a whole other crime spree, and made sure all these police departments believe I committed fraud when I can actually prove she committed the fraud, and no one's looking into it properly because they just want to believe the mother. So if you look at everything I've been through and then still managed to come back to my home, finding over $100,000 in damage, in 12 months flat the damage was done, and then still managing to get things back in order from there with everything else I already have going on while I'm still treating the initial medical emergency, the initial overload of carbon monoxide, and the initial brain injuries, along with additional brain injuries, which is still going on today. That is what I'm still treating daily. I still held on to everything that I'd been building all along the way. Still have everything that I'd been building initially after each wipeout, and then purchasing this home in 2017. It's now 2025. So here I am finishing up this next remodel after I just finished remodeling everything. 3 years ago, I had just finished everything. So the work here has been going on for about 16 months now, since January of 2024. And it's still going on. I'm over here tying up the finishing touches of it all, but I've legitimately been remodeling this home or the one I lived at in Ohio. It took a few months. I did have help, and it's much smaller, but I did have some help, and I remodeled this one, went straight into remodeling that one, and then remodeled this one again. But I have had other people working with me, working for me. I have had numerous contractors, and then I did have basically like a household employee, like an assistant for about a year and a half as well. And another year and a half had my cousin working for me as well down in Ohio. Because I was still so injured and only have so much functioning. I can only handle so much. So this is really the first year where I've had everything on my plate as a whole by myself to take care of everything, which is why everything kind of just runs half-ass. Now, with everything I've been through and where I am today, everything has still been running. I have always been on my hustle every step of the way, all of these years, all of these decades, never missing a step all the way until I got completely clotheslined in 2018 and completely laid out incapacitated. Every step of the way, been building, chasing the bag. That's all I was ever doing, nothing else. Not one person has ever looked into that. They believe whatever they were told. They believe because they see me doing whatever form of employment, and the moment that they meet me, don't know anything about my past or what I've been doing all of these decades to get to where I am today, or don't see the bigger picture of what I have in the moment, because they're not looking beyond like what's directly in front of their face. That's another issue, because I've done many streams of income and many forms of employment along the way to get to where I am today. It was not just one thing. I didn't just do one thing to get here and that's it. I've been building and building. I've been building an empire from the time I was a teenager. Now, if I had not been wiped out, criminally wiped out, and harassed all of these decades along the way, I would already own 4 or 5 houses just like the one I live in, and I would have been retired from everything else 5 to 10 years ago, and my income would have been flowing, without any disruption whatsoever quite some time ago. So I'm still trying to put the pieces back together from all of the last sets of catastrophic life events, all of the last batches of escapades and crimes that my mother's gone on, and the other people in large agencies she's used to help her. That is all still getting resituated from all of the piggybacking of the catastrophic events along the way. Now, if I was really who she portrayed me to be, I would not still have the home that I've been in for 8 years after everything that I've been through, and spending 3 of those years near death. Part of this overlapped with COVID, but I would still not have the home that I have. I would not have had numerous new vehicles along the way. I would have not been able to pay cash for another home in Ohio when it became an extreme life-threatening medical emergency once our brains were bleeding, and Ford Motor Company in the city then collaborated with my mother to make sure that I was forced home to live with my brain bleeding here in this home. If she was who she says I am, I would not have been able to pull off everything I have pulled off and then get myself back into my home, because this has always been my home, and then get it resituated and put back together to begin to be able to pick up the pieces to build forward, to continue finishing everything else I had already had planned long ago. All of my business plans are 5+ years in advance. My business plans and my life plans, they're all planned out 5+ years in advance. And then I continue on from there. Except for with me, I have all of these hiccups and disruptions along the way due to the long-term escapades and all of the crimes that have been ongoing. And what happens is my mother waits for everything to get situated from the last escapade, or sometimes she doesn't. And she keeps things going, and she tries to make me look unstable because she's been going with this false narrative that I'm just so unstable, which is why she has custody of my older 2 kids, which has never been real. And she uses these activities to make it appear that way to others. But what others don't realize is that I was never unstable in the first place, and I've always owned my own home, and now I'm several homes deep, numerous new cars in. All of these decades later, nothing's ever been unstable. She's the one who's causing all of this to look that way. And nobody even has contact with me to understand anything I'm actually doing in my real life. What is actually going on in my real life, where I live, what I have, what I've actually been through, what's been going on. I've spent $165,000 out of pocket on treatment to keep my son and I alive. That amount was spent in a 6-year span. The first 4 years of it was where the majority of the treatments were and where the majority of the money was spent. But if you factor all of that in and where I am today with everything, and I'm still in the home that I've had and have everything still moving forward at a slower rate because I am injured. I do suffer continuous symptoms and have 5 brain injuries. I am considered permanently disabled and don't receive assistance or compensation from anyone. And I'm still building things forward. Now, if you add all of that up with everything she's been saying all along the way, none of it fits. None of that is reality. My life speaks for itself. The home I live in speaks for itself. What I've been through speaks for itself. What I have left after everything I've been through speaks for itself. The fact that I spent $165,000 on hyperbaric oxygen in an extreme emergency and managed to barely save our lives, that speaks for itself. The fact that I own a home hyperbaric chamber as well speaks for itself. Everything that's gone on with all the destruction, the chaos, the screaming, the delusions, the amount of physical distress, the amount of mental and emotional distress that was caused along the way with all of these crimes ongoing at the same time all of this is going on. All of these people and agencies were criminally harassing me and causing problems in my life directly due to the deranged lunatic and her phone call placing to all of these people and agencies. And these people inserting themselves in my life, acting as if what she has said to them to be real, everything she has said to be real, and it's not real at all. And no one's looking at the bigger picture of anything I've been doing any step of the way to get to where I am today, how long I've been building, what I've actually been up to, how many times I've been wiped out. Add this up, the amount of money that I've actually made and actually lost along the way, because I did add this up a few weeks ago. The amount that I've actually lost is well over $3 million from the time I was 18 to the current day at age 41, due to the ongoing crimes and wipeouts directly. Because there shouldn't have been any disruptions along the way. Normal people don't have these intentional disruptions and crimes going on constantly. So the only way to stop all of this is to clear my name, keep making the videos, out every single person who's been involved in all of this, and let the videos eventually go viral, because they will, because there are so many crimes and so many high-level officials involved in these crimes and this false narrative about me without anybody knowing anything about my actual life other than the bullshit, the little bit of bullshit here or there they were told, and then they run with it without looking into anything. Even if I tell people reality, they still go around reality and operate as if what they were told was real. And just act like, yeah, I just have this mental disorder, and what I said isn't true, and what the deranged lunatic said is true. Or they see me suffering the continuous symptoms I suffer from, because I also don't have daily functioning, and there is times I'm incapacitated. Let's say I'm suffering from symptoms, which is pretty much daily. There isn't really a day without any symptoms at all. Or if I'm having a worse day than not, those people they see that happening, and they misconstrue what they see to be a mental disorder instead of the ongoing effects I suffer from 5 brain injuries and heavy neurotoxicity and the initial carbon monoxide poisoning, which I'm still treating. So it's beyond me why everybody's just off in left field. Nobody lives in reality. Nobody's fact-checked any of this information. Literally, my life speaks for itself. You can tell by the way I look that I've never been on drugs, never had a drug problem. You can't really tell if somebody has a mental disorder, but I've already said I have 5 brain injuries, and the manner in which I'm still delivering the information and able to finally talk after all of these years. It took many years for me to relearn how to talk. I did have to relearn how to talk without help from anyone. So the fact that I'm still able to make these videos and deliver the information after having those 5 brain injuries and no proper treatment kind of says that that's not a mental disorder right there, because you can tell by the longevity of the videos, the amount of videos I've put out, what I'm talking about, how I'm describing what's all gone on all of this time, the reality of my life, all the different forms of employment, all the different streams of income, how everything is still managing to be held on to and ran to this day after everything that has happened. It all speaks for itself, and no one is looking at that. So that's another reason for these videos, because the truth needs to come out. Now I've done videos where I've given tours of my home and showed pictures of my home and my yard, because I've never made anything I have public. I've never been on social media. I've kept my entire life private. due to all of these ongoing crimes and the amount of jealousy and envy I have. So that right there just speaks for itself. If you look at all the videos and you actually look at where I'm at after everything I've been through, and you're looking at what I look like, no, I've never worn makeup ever. I wake up looking like this. Occasionally I straighten my hair. Sometimes I don't do it for days. I still look like this. You can tell by what I look like, what I have, what's all going on in my life, where I'm still at, the home I live in, the cars that I own. You can tell that the false narrative has never been real. So, like I said, my life speaks for itself. Everything I've been through speaks for itself. Yet all these people and agencies continue to operate as if I'm a deranged lunatic with a mental disorder, when you can tell everything my mother has, she didn't build any of that herself. She took from others to get what she has today. Fraudulently. These are crimes, which no one's looking into, which I have reported to numerous departments. And still everybody believes the deranged lunatic. She's not 100% self-made, self-built. She's not self-anything. She took from others to get to where she is. She has caused problems, committed crimes, and everything else to have what she has. I have more than her. I am further ahead. After 3 complete wipeouts and a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, I'm ahead of her all by myself, building from nothing, and she has had to work her entire life and take from others to get to where she is today and have what she has. Now, right there is the proof that that's extreme jealousy and envy. On top of the fact that I look like nothing like what I've been through. I look like the exact opposite of what I've been through. So what I look like, what I still have left, what's all gone on, this is all a problem. That's exactly what the problem is. Do the comparison, use your brain instead of listening to some crazy lady who's just repeating delusions out here without ever even thinking twice. No one even thinks twice or even thinks to I don't know, Google my address or look into me whatsoever. Everyone just runs with the delusions, which down the line causes extreme harassment, further arrests, all types of problems. Yeah, the proof is in the pudding. That's where I'm at with it. You can tell by the way I look, you can tell by what I have, you can tell by what I've been through, and what's all gone on and where I am today. The proof is in the fucking pudding. My life speaks for itself. I'll be back with more. Thanks, bye.